Hi guys, hope you're both well. Didn't talk to you today, it was a shame, but never mind. And Emma, I didn't speak to you yesterday. I think you were at ballet when I spoke to Nathan. Anyway, I hope you're both well. And Emma, I hope you've been practicing some jokes. I've been telling people at work or asking them, how did Dracula get into his castle? Through the bat flap, and they all think it's a really funny joke. And I'll have to see if I can remember some more of your ones. Anyway guys, I was going to say, yeah, I had quite an interesting day today. I went on a really long bike ride. I'll say really long. It was about 50 miles in total. I went into the centre of London, and I don't know if you remember, but during the end of end of the summer, we went to that festival. I cycled all the way down there and then back. It's quite good fun. I went along around the city as well a bit. And yeah, I've been doing a bit of that lately. I've even bought myself a cycle helmet, which is very important. I've never had one before, but since I'm doing these long bike rides through cities and things, I thought I'd get one. Yeah, it's not quite far enough yet for me to be able to get to Norfolk, but I'm sure with a bit more practice I might get there one day on my bike. But anyway, I was going to read you a story. I'm going to read you one from the Treasury of Fairy Tales. This book was the book that Uncle Chris, Auntie Kerry and Cousin Jake bought Nathan for his christening. This is before Billy was born. I'm sure if Billy had been around it would have been from him as well. And the story I'm going to read from it is called The Selfish Giant. This one's written by a writer a while ago called Oscar Wilde. I think it's the only fairy tale he ever wrote. You'll probably hear of him more and more as you get older. He did write a lot of things. This one was the fairy tale. Here we go, The Selfish Giant. There was once a giant who came down from the mountains to build himself a castle in the valley. All the people of the valley were amazed by the beauty of the castle and the garden that surrounded it. Flowers of every scent and colour grew there. Birds and butterflies flew everywhere. It seemed there was magic in the garden, and in the afternoons after school the children would go there to play. One day the giant dug up a tree as a present and set off up the steep mountain path to visit his friend. His friend was delighted to see him, and the two giants sat talking for days and days. The giant told his friend about his wonderful garden. But surely, his friend said, it cannot be the most beautiful garden in the world if you let all the children trample on it. The giant saw some of the sense in what his friend said. The next day the giant climbed to the very top of the mountain and found the biggest boulder anyone had ever seen. This will build a fine wall, his friend said, and the giant set off home struggling under the weight of the enormous boulder. After many days the giant reached the valley. With his left hand he smashed the great stone and laid the pieces one by one, smashed the pieces and laid the pieces one upon the other to build a great wall around the garden. It was autumn by the time the wall was finished. The giant stood back to admire his work and thought, now it really is my garden. No one will be able to spoil it. Outside the garden the children had nowhere to play. They wandered round the high walls when their lessons were over and talked about the beautiful garden inside. How happy we were there, they said to each other. Winter came and the garden was bleak and white and silent. The giant stared at the snow and longed for spring. Months went by, but there was no sign of a thaw. Little did the giant know that outside his wall the sun shone and the grass was green. Then one morning the giant was woken by the song of a bird. At last, he cried, spring is here. He looked out the window and saw that the snow was melting. In a corner of the garden the children had made a hole in the great wall. Laughing and shouting they ran happily into the garden. Everything came to life again. Flowers bloomed and the grass was green. The giant hurried down to greet the children, but when they saw him coming they ran away to hide. Only the smallest boy remained. He stood crying under a tree whose branches still had no leaves. The giant gently lifted him up, and as the boy's small hands touched the branches of the tree burst into blossom. How selfish I have been, thought the giant. With my great wall I have locked the spring out of my garden. The children who had been watching came out from their hiding places. They shyly gathered round the giant and offered him flowers. It is your garden now, children, said the giant, and together they started to break down the great wall. With the stones they built arches, and the children ran round and round and in and out of them. The giant saw that his garden was more beautiful than ever. He loved all the children, but he kept a special place in his heart for the smallest child, for it was he who had shown the giant how his selfishness had destroyed his garden. From that day until the end of the giant's life, the children played happily in the garden. Well, that's a short but sweet one, I think. Lovely story. I remember that one when I was a lad, and hope you guys enjoyed it. Anyway, speak to you soon. Ta-ta. Mwah.